The wildcard weekend is here. Apart from DFS, the fantasy season is over. So, Ed, we thought we would take some time to have a look at some mega stats from the 2025 season. It's becoming a bit of a tradition at the end of the season here at THHQ, isn't it?
It is indeed. And unlike last year, I have prepared some stats for this show.
Fantastic. We're going to start off quickly. We're going to start with a quick five. So these, Ed, are five stats unique to this year and some player landmarks, some team landmarks that I just found really interesting. And each of them do kind of tell a story of some of the fortunes of these players and teams as well. I'm going to start off with, I'm going to go for the right. I'm going to go for Mr. Taysom Hill, the gadget player himself.
King of the Gremlins.
The king of the fantasy Gremlins. And he's now the king of the all-purpose NFL players. 1,000 career rushing yards, 1,000 career passing yards, and 1,000 career receiving yards. A threshold that he is the only person to have ever met. And to be fair, when you're looking at Taysom Hill as a player, there isn't anybody that is used as varied as he is there?
Indeed. I mean, you know, we have a lot of light-hearted fun about Taysom Hill, but that's an impressive stat line, and I'd be surprised if anyone repeats that, to be honest.
As far as a career goes, he's been paid a lot of money to have quite a lot of fun doing a bit of everything. He's had a decent career, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the rushing and passing, obviously numerous players have done that, but it's the receiving bit that makes him that little bit special.
Next up, Jackson Smith-Njigba. So we knew he'd had a good season. I didn't realise from a Seahawks point of view just quite what a milestone it was. So he's demolished the Seahawks single-season receiving record. That was previously 1,303, set by Mr. DK Metcalf, whose departure paved the way for JSN to be as dominant. 1,793 yards. So as far as breaking a record goes, by 490 yards is quite a benchmark to set. And it was also the second highest ever yardage total by a player under the age of 24, just 16 short of Justin Jefferson's record set in 2022. Now, we always say you can always find a little way to move the marker of age or whatever to find yourself a stat that makes it look good. But I think we forget JSN is only 24. It feels like he's been around for ages already, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we all expected a good season from him, and he's just exceeded all expectations. He certainly will be pushing for a big contract in the next year or two.
Next up, Travis Kelce. He is now one of only two players ever to have passed the line of 800 yards in, Ed, 12 consecutive seasons.
Is it his last season? Who knows?
Oh, do you know? Yeah, that's going to be a narrative for a little while, isn't it? So it depends if anything else crops up. Who is the only other player to have achieved that, Ed?
I've looked at the notes, so I know who it is. So I'm going to guess Jerry Rice.
Well done, Ed. That is some excellent reading. I think people might say they may have heard of Jerry. He was quite good at catching the ball. But yeah, the fact that only two players that shows that longevity we've had from Kelce. So if this is the last season, he's certainly earned his retirement by this point. Let's stick with the Chiefs. So the Chiefs in their final 3 games got below what yardage total, Ed? Let's go for 170, 220, or 270 in 3 consecutive games.
Well, it's 3 consecutive games without Mahomes. So
yes, it was.
It's going to be low. I can't believe they were total yards. I can't believe they're below 170. I'll go down the middle. 220 for 3 consecutive games.
It was, Ed, 170.
Wow.
So
total yards. That's insane.
That's it. Total all-purpose yards. Now, Chris Oladokun was the signal caller for those games, not Patrick Mahomes, which I think we have to add in for context. That's why I've put him in the picture rather than doing Mahomes dirty and sticking him in there. But that was the first time a team has done that in 16 years. 16 years it's taken for a team to go 3 consecutive games with fewer than 170 total yards. The last team the Jamarcus Russell-led Las Vegas. Well, not Las Vegas. That would have been LA Raiders, I think, at that time. That was even So, yeah, a long, long time ago.
Oakland Raiders would they have been?
I reckon that might have been LA then at that point.
Really? Yeah.
I'll have a look, but I should. That sort of thing we should look at before the show, really.
The Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders. Then let's finish up with the Jets. So the Jets now, Ed, are the only team to have ever gone 15 games or more without an interception. And then to put a cherry on top, they made it the whole season. So currently 17 games consecutively without an interception. How long will that continue next year?
I mean, who knows? I mean, that is one impressive stat. I saw that the Jets a few days ago, maybe they posted something about, I think they're the first team in history or some basically for the same offensive line, the same players to play every single game. It's the first time it's ever happened. And some of the comments to that were hilarious. They announced this with great pride. But yeah, I've heard that interception stat a lot, and that is unbelievable. Even the Bengals managed a few interceptions.
Do you reckon that's a little bit of search engine optimization by the Jets media team, so that when people look for consecutive games in Jets, they're seeing that? Really, hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, quick 5 for us there. I've got 5 more now, Ed. So next up, I have the top 5, and this is the top 5 teams based on fantasy points. Now, this is every fantasy point scored by a fantasy eligible player at any point in the season. And I don't think, from the start of the season, I don't think there's any surprises on there. I mean, let's start off with the Cowboys. Now, I think because the Cowboys have been so bad on defense and the fact that they're not in the playoffs this year, that might come as a bit of a surprise. But we know from a fantasy point of view, we've been able to rely on their players so frequently, week in, week out. So they had in Dak Prescott, the QB6, in Williams, the RB12, in Pickens, the wide receiver 5, in Lamb, the wide receiver 22, and in Jake Ferguson, the tight end 5. To have that many players in the top window doesn't happen very often. If you've got a couple of wide receivers that are fantasy relevant, you usually ignore the tight end. If you've got elite running game like the Ravens, I mean, Zay Flowers has been a bit different this year, but you tend to ignore the receiving game in your draft picks. So to have had dominance in a position across the board, it really is something that's a bit anomalous for the Cowboys. We then go across to the Rams in second. So had Stafford, the QB3, Williams, the RB9, Nakua, obviously the wide receiver 1, but Adams as well as the wide receiver 9. The worries about whether he'd contribute or not were completely unfounded and unnecessary, it seemed, over the course of the season. And then Colby Parkinson was the highest tight end at tight end 19. So that's what I mean there. When you've got 2 elite receivers in the wide receiver, you tend to discount the big numbers at tight end. I think the only team I am surprised here, really, if you so highly, is the 49ers, because just thinking about the season outside of CMC, and obviously CMC has contributed to a lot of this, and I'll talk about that later on as well. It just feels that we had Brock Purdy's high games towards the end. We had Matt Jones doing bits, but Kittle was only tight end 13 because he missed a lot of time. No wide receiver inside the top 30. But you look at the games, there was always someone who got you to a threshold for the 49ers in certain. So I think they just always got a good number. It's just from a fantasy point of view, they're often quite evenly spread that it didn't give us that fantasy relevance. Was that your feeling with? Are you surprised to see them there, or am I perhaps just blinded by?
No, you're exactly right. They're very surprised to see them in there because I can only, if you had to name a big fancy contributor from the 49ers, you'd name CMC and then you'd be struggling. Like I'd have assumed the Bills would be up there, for example.
Yeah.
I know they've got no maybe mega stars apart from Josh Allen, but the points they put up, maybe the Chargers I would have thought might have snuck in there as well. I think if the Bengals have a full season out of Burrow, they're always up there as well. But yeah, the 49ers does surprise me, and the lack of the Bills as well.
And obviously the Patriots, a team that have been barren for fantasy options for a couple of years, back up there at 5th. And last year's first place for the top 5 fantasy points produced, the Detroit Lions, still in the mix in 4th. Feels like a quiet season by their standards, but still fantasy points galore, especially the number of games they were chasing this year as well. Let's look at the other end, though. So let's have a quick look at the bottom 5. Now, once again, thinking about how the season, no surprises. But if I'd said to you at the start of the season, the Minnesota Vikings will have the 5th fewest fantasy points overall, that'd have been one where we'd have disagreed and we'd have come back to it now. That shows just how off the boil they have been by their standards, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, you just look at the season Jefferson's had, and that's kind of just at the heart. Well, not at the heart. It's one of the problems in Minnesota, as well as the quarterback situation. But when you've got your marquee player struggling so badly, it's not a surprise.
I was a little bit surprised to see just before we started recording, the NFL had put out their list of receivers with over 1,000 yards, and I was a little bit surprised to see Jefferson on there. But But he did just get past that line. Now, having a look at the bottom of the pile, the Raiders, absolutely no surprise. What I want to look at, though, is Ashton Genty accounted for 24% of all fantasy points produced by the Raiders, and he was RB11. Now, look for context. Puka Nacua was the wide receiver 1 and accounted for 24% also of the Rams' total points. But that's a big gap between fantasy points scoring wide receiver 1 and RB11. CMC, as the number 1 player overall, accounts for 28% of the 49ers total points. So I think initially I started looking at this, I was thinking just that's a lot of points, Jensen, and no one else has done anything. But actually what I've kind of come away from looking at is that he's producing the exact right proportion we would hope from an elite offensive playmaker on a team. It's actually, we just need to see the Raiders' production go up to bring that along with Genty next year, don't we?
Yeah, he's doing as best as he can in a very poor side.
Before we move on, then, please do take a moment to subscribe, to like, and to give us a share. We have got fancy content coming to you throughout the off-season. And in next month, so we're going to be getting deep into our rookie research as well to bring you our pre-NFL and post-NFL draft shows ready for your dynasty leagues. Next up then, Ed, I've had a look at what I'm billing mega stats. So just stats I found interesting. I would like to bring to you, the viewers, and to you, my Edward. So I'm starting off, well, I've gone basically each position pretty much. I'm going to start off looking predominantly at running backs, but wide receivers ended up cropping up. So I was looking at the most all-purpose yards. Now, when we look at the most all-purpose yards, that is every yard accrued by an offensive player in any way, shape, or form. So pretty much we expect that to be dominated by running backs, because running backs tend to the Russian work, and then our elite running backs, especially for fantasy, get in the receiving game as well. So I'm going to go from bottom to top head. At 10th, we have Puka Nacua, absolutely no surprise. Then Jackson Smith and Jigba, no surprise. We then hit running back territory. So we've got Achan, Gibbs in 7th, Cook in 6th, Jonathan Taylor in 5th. He would have been very high at that list until before the buy for the Colts when we saw that drop off. Then CMC, and then Bijan Robinson in 3rd. That is it from the household names, and we still have 1st and 2nd to go. Have you had a look at the notes, Ed, or is it having a guessing game pointless at this stage?
I have had a look at the notes, and I think it's a mistake. I think you need to check it again. Surely that's a mistake.
So the player in 2nd, we have mentioned on this end of season Megastats show 3 years in a row now. And if we were doing a live show, I was asking people to comment. I reckon we could get 1,000 comments and no one would say Kevontae Turpin. And so he has cut with this season 2,354 all-purpose yards. Where have they come from? Kick returning. That is where the vast majority of those have come from.
Okay.
But on top of that, he's got his 2 touchdowns. We saw his Christmas Day mega touchdown was about 70-odd yards he got on Christmas Day as well. So he's proved very useful in that regard. I'm going to mention Turpin later on as well. Top, though, all-purpose yards is a rookie, and it's Kamara DK of the Tennessee Titans. Once again, the vast majority of that is kick return work. So why is that of any relevance when we're a fantasy show? Because we don't score for kick returners. For me, it's the fact that we know that players that are produced on special teams keep their roster spots regardless. and you produce well on special teams, you get thrown into the odd play, don't you? And that's exactly what we're seeing. So DK 6 touchdowns, Turpin 2 touchdowns. Am I saying we draft them highly in our dynasty and redraft leagues next year? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is, and this is going to be a theme across a few of these things, these are the sorts of players you gamble on and you get lots of very late in your best ball drafts because they have those 1 or 2 games every so often where they do get to produce.
DK is definitely somebody I'll be looking at picking up in best ball leagues next year. He has shown a number of flashes this season, hasn't he?
And if you're in one of those leagues where, like Scott Fishbowl was a couple of years ago, where that kick returning was a key part, these are the players that are really ones to kind of keep in the back of your mind, aren't they, for targeting? Next, have a look at those. We'll have a look at those A-dot leaders next. So A-dot is the average depth of target. So how far away are you when the ball is thrown to you? So speaking of best ball targets, these are once again the players I wanted to look at. On the top 10 list, there is only one player that I would say is a big name, and that is in 6th place, which is Alec Pierce. The rest of the top 10. So 10th, Isaiah Bond, Kendra Lambert-Smith, Christian Watson, to be fair, a big name, just not a big producer. Casey Washington, Kyle Williams is interesting as a rookie being that high up as well. Jalen Hyatt, Tutu Atwell, and then up top as well, we have Devontae Walker, who, if he was throwing the ball, it was a touchdown for the Ravens this season. And at the top, Tyquan Thornton as well. So look at the average depth of target then. You have got Tyquan Thornton, an average depth of target of 26.89 yards. So when he was getting thrown the ball, it was at distance. And he also had 3 touchdowns. So he had several games where he was really useful to you. So 4 games, he was fantasy relevant this year. Plug that into your best ball, you've got a really good, solid flex play at that point. Devontae Walker is a player that I'm going to be really interested in targeting in best ball as well next year, because we know the passing game, the only player you can rely on at the Ravens is Zay Flowers, and you can't ever rely on him every single week. But Devontae Walker is featured in best ball lineups, I'm sure, where drafted, if anywhere, quite a lot this season. So yeah, most weeks they will do nothing, so you don't want to be picking and choosing when you play them. That is the joy of best ball with these sorts of players. Any of those or that you've benefited from, Ed?
I've got a little bit of Alec Pierce. You know, I've had a good best ball season on the whole. And yeah, Alec Pierce was somebody that I gambled on with a late pick in a number of my leagues. But yeah, really interesting because like you say, the sort of players you pick up in those last rounds and they could win you a week, which could make a difference.
And Thornton's interesting because looking at the number of routes run, so he ran 258 routes, which is interesting. Devontae Walker only 63. So it is a probability game. Of those 63, for Walker to come away with 6 receptions and 3 touchdowns, it's efficient. Let's be really honest. Yeah. But if he's on the field, it's often for that reason. So we spoke about our running backs earlier, and I want to have a look next, Ed, at yards after contact. So when that first contact was made by a defensive player, how many more yards do players accrue? And once again, going through the list, there are very few surprises. So 10th, Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne. I think we've known he can do it. Would he do it was a different question. Ashton Genty, 8th. So that is what we spoke about in the preseason. Lots of people did. His ability to hit contact and go, yeah, I'm going to carry on again. We've started to see that this year. Javonte Williams in 7, CMC in 6. That was probably hindered more because of his involvement in the passing game this year. He had a very different role this year to what we've usually seen from him. Achan in 5, Derrick Henry, that whole lot of beef in 4th. James Cook in 3rd. So James Cook in 3rd. The reason that stands out so much to me is that in 2024, he had 718 yards after contact. 2023, 688. It felt like we'd established a baseline. To then add an extra 300 odd yards on is a huge step up. And I'm sure the conversations about the regressions coming this year, I think James Cook has done enough to justify he did deserve that contract and he did deserve to be in running for fantasy this year. Top 2, 0 surprises. Bijan Robertson in 2nd with 1,086 yards after contact. Top of the pile, though, Jonathan Taylor, 1,137 yards after contact. So the reason they're the big names is those are the players that we want the yards after contact to know that they're going to get the extra points. Say every 10 yards is a point when it comes to to fantasy football, that's an extra 110 points on your fantasy roster. That's what we want for those players. So Ashton Genty mentioned him there. In your rookie drafts in Dynasty, that yards after contact ability is one of those really important things when we're looking at our rookies. Final for me, Ed, then. I'm going to go to tight ends. And what I was looking at is the yards per route run. We know from tight end point of view, we have our blockers, we have our receivers, you have some that are the hybrid of everything. And we want the players that are going to be really efficient on their yards with the route runs. So top of the pile in the yards per route run is George Kittle, 2.17. 0.4 yards per route run ahead of Trey McBride in second. So he's the clear leader. And without that hamstring injury, he would. What season could he have had? I still think McBride was going to come out on top. He was so dependent upon in that offense. But Kittle was really on course to have a great season this year. I think will justify probably going about the same place next year, maybe tight end 4 again in redraft, I'd reckon. McBride, say he's got a 1.78 yards per route run, but also a target share of 27.33, which is an elite target share for a tight end. So he's the only tight end in the top 20 for target percentage. And all of the others are wide receivers, except for CMC, who was essentially a running back receiver throughout the whole of the year. The player that really stood out to me is a player in third for yards per route run, who had 1.73, and that was Colston Loveland. So third in yards per route run, ahead of Bowers and Pitts, who are fourth and fifth respectively. And his target share was only 14.59%. That's the lowest of the whole of the top 5. So to round that out, after Pitts, we've got Gadsden, Johnson, Fannin is a standout as well, Strange, and Tyler Warren. So all players that were crucial to their receiving game. The reason Loveland stands out over all of those is because on that top 10, he has by far the highest average depth of target of 9.5, which is 9th of all tight ends this year with a minimum of 100 routes run, and is fairly elite for rookie tight end figures as well, given he seemed quite off radar until that breakout game against the Bengals. So, Ed, my final thing before I hand over to you for some of your mega stats, Colston Loveland, lock him in for 2026. He's been my very early my guy target, I think, of the off season.
Can I just say with tight ends this year, it's always a slightly iffy position for me. I've always struggled with drafting tight ends, but it feels this year that it's been almost more unpredictable than previous years. Like, the fact that, we thought Javon Johnson would have a good year, but the year that he's had, Gadsden, Fannin, Loveland to an extent, even going down to the likes of, Brenton Strange. Has it been an unpredictable year, or is that just me forgetting how unpredictable tight ends can be?
We're looking at the spike games of that top 10 when looking at the yards per run. So that I think one of the best figures to look at the actual production, how many yards you get in every time you run in to try to catch the ball. We've got players like Gadsden, Johnson, Strange have got 3 and 2 touchdowns. So you're not getting those big weeks from any of them on a regular basis, are you? The only reliable from a touchdown point of view on that list is Kittle with 7, McBride with 11, obviously. Was it McBride a couple of years ago had no touchdowns? Or have I misremembered that? Was that McBride or somebody else?
That sounds familiar. Yeah, it does.
I think it was, wasn't it? It might have even been last year. I need to look that up as well. Loveland with 5, Bowers with 7. Bowers with 7, and he hardly played this year. Plug him in again next year with confidence, I think. And then Harold Fannin with 6. So, yeah, I think it's that touchdown usage was it always is tricky, isn't it, tight end? That's why I think we always say you go for one of the absolute top 2 or 3, or you stream each week based on matchups. And that's why Fannin, Strange, Johnson were so useful for us this year, weren't they?
Indeed.
Right. Please do that if you haven't already. Subscribe, give us a like, give us a share as well. This, though, Ed, is your favourite part of the year, usually, apart from last year where you forgot to do it. And that's where we look at some next-gen stats. So I've not stuck the next-gen logo on there because obviously Little Old Us has absolutely no affiliation with next-gen stats in any way, shape or form. But what a website to go down a rabbit hole on.
Indeed, yeah. join them on social media or go to the website. There's loads of stuff on there. One of our favourite charts on there is the fastest, the top 5 fastest ball carries of the 2025 season. We love that. We love that guessing game. So first of all, I'm going to get you to guess what was the top speed of any player carrying the ball in the 2025 season.
Is it usually this sort of thing where I either get it close or I'm miles off? Is it usually something around like 23-ish miles per hour?
That is very impressive, Mark Pestle. It is 22.38 miles per hour.
Oh, gone a bit too high.
And number one, hazard a guess who number one might be, with a 43-yard reception, interestingly.
Oh, right. I'm based on what I said earlier. The reason we've mentioned Turpin, the NFL highwayman that he is over the last years, is because he's always featured in this list.
He has.
Have I misremembered his reception length of 60 yard? Was it Turpin Christmas Day? Was that 43 yards?
It might have been, but he was not that fast.
Oh, was he not that fast?
It's Mr. Jonathan Taylor was number one, and then
of course,
second, third, and fourth, all by the same player: a 42-yard rush, a 78-yard rush, and a 69-yard rush, all by the same player.
There's only one player capable of that, of high speed over that distance on 3 times over the season. That's got to be Gibbs, surely.
It is indeed. Very good. Your knowledge is superb. The top 5 rounded off by Brian Thomas Jr. with a 46-yard reception.
I'm glad you asked me that one because I wouldn't have said Brian Thomas Jr.
That is a tough one. But all of those plays were over 22 miles an hour. A little notable, interesting tidbit is that 2 of the top 20 were defensive players. So you had at 19 PS2 with an interception, and then Nashawn Wright for the Bears as well with a 74-yard interception as well. So a little bit of a tidbit there as well. Moving on. So I love that one, but we also like the chart is entitled Remarkable Rushes. Ooh. And it has the top 20 rush yards over expected. Bijan, unsurprisingly, tops it. So in week 17, there was one run where his expected yards was 3 yards. What did he turn that into?
Week 17, that was where he ran the length, wasn't it? So it's going to be 90 plus, was it?
Very good. It was he returned. His expected rush yards was 3, and he managed a ridiculous 93 yards. Unsurprisingly, he and JT share the top 4 positions between them. Only one entry from Saquon in the top 20, which is another illustration of his quieter season. He had 5 entries in the top 20 last season.
Oh, wow.
£10 if you can guess who was number 1 in 2024.
Number 1 in 2024.
Most rushing yards above expected on a particular play.
Right. So it's going to be somewhat, it's going to be £10, I'm not going to get it. So I'm going to go for someone ridiculous. Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders, no, that is a ballpark. That is very equivalent. Very equivalent. Damian Pierce.
Okay. Yeah.
Damian Pierce. So yeah, but right, similar sort of player. So yeah, very good. A couple more to leave you off, finish you off with. I wanted to talk about Dak because I found this stat fascinating on Next Gen Stats. We know he's had a great season. We predicted him to have a great season, so let's just blow that trumpet again. He finished 3rd in total yards with 4,552. He was behind only Matt Stafford and Jared Goff. And he's also been able to do it against basically any defense he's seen. He's had the most passing yards against 2-man, cover 2, cover 6, and then he's ranked 2nd against cover 1 and top 6 against both cover 0 and cover 4. So I think that just shows what a great season Dak has. And, he is an elite quarterback. He gets a bit of stick, doesn't he, Dak? Maybe because he's a cowboy. But, in terms of what he produces, it's always brilliant. And can we finish off with Trey McBride? He has been the top slot receiver in the whole of the NFL. So not just at tight end, in the whole of the NFL. They were kind of more versatile, the Cardinals, in how they used him this year. He was lined up in the slot at 42.8% of the time, which was 10% more than in the previous 3 seasons. But he led the NFL and all tight ends and all receivers in receptions in the slot, 63, yards, 644, and touchdowns, 6. So, obviously beating the likes of elite receivers like Amon-Ra and Puka, who tend to get a lot of their yards in the slot. I just think that just kind of cements what a ridiculous season Trey McBride's had.
And that, although we've had Marvin Harrison Jr. being in and out and mostly out, I think the fact that Michael Wilson still got over 1,000 yards, it's not like he's done it all it's not he's done it because no one else is doing anything. That goes to show just how good he has been, doesn't it, really?
He's had a phenomenal season. He's one, is going to be and watch with interest next season just how high he goes in drafts. Because if it's anything like this season, he was just in a league of his own as a tight end, and he would have made a lot of difference to some league-winning teams.
Can I just add in one final next-gen stat? Because when you started talking, I remembered a stat that I love to look at every year because mathematically it shouldn't be possible. But it's the longest plays. How many yards is an NFL field?
Well, it's 100, but then each end zone is 10 yards, isn't it? So is it 110 technically a play could be?
Well, the top distance ran in yards, which was a 90-yard punt return touchdown. The yardage, 142.3.
Oh,
now,
it's the weaving.
If you've not been on the Next Gen Stats website, for the charts and play diagrams alone is brilliant when you can try to map out a player's thought process or read what the defense was like based on. It's gone there. So, yeah, always one of my favorite. And that was Kamira DK, we mentioned again earlier, 142.3 yards on a 90-yard punt return touchdown. So, yeah, if you've not been on Next Gen Stats, it's absolutely brilliant. We could probably go on for another hour of things that we find interesting on there and sticking those stuff as well. But people would switch off, Ed, as entertaining as we are. That is the end, then, of our Mega Stats season. We're going to be back with our next show. Is going to be looking at a bit of a rookie review, aren't we, Ed? So that's why we've been deliberately steered clear of some rookie-centric stats on the show this week. So we're looking at that next time. And then we'll be getting into looking beyond into dynasty season and our rookie drafts as well. Anything you want to add there before wildcard weekend? I've heard that the playoffs are overrated, Ed.
Waste of time. You don't want to get in the playoffs. You want a longer break.
Yeah. What you want is to sack your head coach and then hear that 9 teams would like to hire him while you interview a list of players.
I wish we'd sacked our head coach. Flipping heck.
Yeah, well, what Joe Burrow said, something needs to change, and the Bengals have decided
we will change nothing.
Will ever change. Anyway, on that note of pessimism, that is all from me. It's all from Ed. So, bada bing, bada bye, and Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.